We proceed from the fact that there can be no winners in a nuclear war, and it should never be unleashed. Since the use of nuclear weapons would have far-reaching consequences, we also confirm that nuclear weapons, as long as they continue to exist, must serve defensive purposes, deterring aggression and preventing war. We believe that further spread of such weapons must be prevented. This is a quote from the joint statement by the heads of Russia, the United States, China, Great Britain, and France on preventing the use of atomic weapons for military purposes. How many nuclear stockpiles do the United States, China, and Russia have as of 2024? Which weapons are the most advanced and powerful? Is nuclear winter as scary as they say it is? How do missile defense systems work? And can they protect against a nuclear strike? In this video, you will learn about this and much more. Don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe to the channel. Please make yourself comfortable and enjoy watching. Let's go! Atomic weapons are weapons of mass destruction, the effect of which is based on the destructive factors of a nuclear or thermonuclear explosion. The main force is the destructive mega-energy released by nuclear reactions of atomic fission or a combination of fusion and atomic fission reactions. As a result, nuclear and thermonuclear bombs can release enormous amounts of lethal energy using relatively small amounts of active ingredients. A nuclear installation as small as a standard bomb can theoretically wipe out a large city due to the simultaneous effects of a triad of destructive factors: light emission, a powerful blast wave, and penetrating radiation. Here is a gradation of modern nuclear warheads by their classes: nuclear air bombs, depth nuclear bombs, warheads for cruise and ballistic missiles of the full-range spectrum, nuclear artillery shells, warheads for naval torpedoes, bottom and anchor nuclear mines, nuclear engineering mines, and nuclear landmines. Despite numerous tests in different regions of the world for military purposes, atomic weapons have been used only once. An American, Robert Oppenheimer, and a Soviet scientist, Igor Kurchatov, are usually considered the fathers of the atomic bomb. But given that the work on the deadly weapon was carried out simultaneously in 4 countries, the resulting bomb can justly be called the product of different nations. The American Manhattan Project employed more than 100,000 people, 40,000 of which were scientific technicians and female computer experts. Nevertheless, Americans consider Robert Oppenheimer the father of the bomb. On August 6, 1945, at 8 in the morning, the United States bomber dropped a uranium bomb called Little Boy over the center of Hiroshima. There were up to 250,000 people living in Hiroshima at the time of the bombing. Also, there were large military depots based there, as well as the headquarters of the Field Marshal and Defense Commander of Southern Japan. By the end of 1941, the Soviet NKVD received intelligence reports indicating the intensification of classified atomic energy developments in the United States and Great Britain. In response, the Soviet leadership classified all nuclear research and prioritized the development of its own atomic weapons. Igor Vasilievich Kurchatov was appointed head of the Soviet atomic project. An experimental nuclear reactor and the first working reactor for the production of weapons-grade plutonium were built under his management. The gas diffusion technique was used to enrich uranium, which became the key technology in isotope production. Closed Combine 817, now the city of Ozersk in the Chelyabinsk region, was founded on the basis of the created infrastructure. This facility later became known as the Mayak Combine. Here they produced weapons-grade plutonium in quantities sufficient for the first tests. By the morning of August 29, 1949, the device for the first Soviet nuclear test was finally assembled. The results of the test were impressive. All buildings and bridges near the epicenter were completely destroyed or burned. Trucks placed there for experimental purposes turned to wreckage. The shockwave overturned heavy equipment such as cannons and tanks. The only structures that relatively survived were the reinforced concrete monolithic frames of buildings, which confirmed their strength against an impact of this magnitude. On October 30, 1961, the Soviet Union tested the Tsar bomb, the most powerful explosive device in human history. It was dropped by a specially modified Tu-95 bomber using a system of 5 parachutes to slow the fall and allow the plane to safely leave the target area. The explosion occurred over the Novaya Zemlya archipelago. The shock wave caused by the explosion was so powerful that it circled the Earth 3 times. In a settlement 400 kilometers away from the epicenter, the explosion destroyed wooden houses and tore off the roofs of buildings made of stone. Radio communication was completely interrupted for hundreds of kilometers around. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, all living things were annihilated, and any structures and equipment were completely destroyed. The test of this thermonuclear bomb was a major event in the arms race, strengthening the Soviet Union's position and ensuring strategic nuclear parity with the United States. At that time, the USSR was actively working on the development of the R-7 and R-16 ballistic missiles, while the United States was already developing more advanced intercontinental ballistic missiles, the Minuteman and Titan II, which significantly surpassed their Soviet counterparts. This set an important strategic task for the Soviet leadership, not only to increase the total number of intercontinental ballistic missiles, but also to create a new generation of heavy missiles. The new missile had to be able to carry a more powerful nuclear charge, be capable of overcoming model missile defense systems, and be capable of long-term storage in a loaded state while maintaining maximum combat readiness. The world has been in a state of tension over the risk of nuclear escalation for several months now. However, many experts, including supporters of differing viewpoints, are increasingly coming to the conclusion that the real threat of nuclear conflict remains unlikely. The main possessors of the nuclear triad are Russia and the United States, which have the largest arsenal of such weapons. The nuclear triad is a strategic military force where nuclear capabilities are distributed among 3 types of carriers: land, air, and sea-based. And now, let's take a look at modern missile defense systems. The ballistic missile is most vulnerable during takeoff and acceleration. This is the best moment to intercept it from a technical point of view. At this stage, the missile is traveling at a relatively low speed. A large target is not protected by decoys and is perfectly visible to guidance systems. Destroying the missile at this point guarantees the destruction of all warheads. However, this vulnerability is compensated by a set of systems intended to overcome missile defense systems. Despite this, a successful intercept requires knowing the missile's location and being able to deploy a missile defense system nearby, which is extremely difficult and, in some cases, simply impossible. The next phase of the flight lasts 10 to 20 minutes. This allows missile defense systems to be positioned at a greater distance and gives more time to make decisions in case of false alarms. However, as soon as the missile leaves the atmosphere, the warheads separate from the boosters and continue to travel by inertia. To reduce visibility, the warheads are shielded, which makes them less visible to missile defense systems. Also, missiles can carry multiple nuclear warheads, which poses a problem for the missile defense system, as it faces more than one target. From a technical point of view, this makes interception much more difficult and also increases the cost of anti-missile systems, as they have to deal with multiple targets simultaneously. The final stage of flight is the last chance for a missile defense system to intercept the warhead. When it re-enters the atmosphere, the warhead is close to its target, allowing missile defense systems to be placed directly on its territory. However, false targets may also give themselves away during this phase. The duration of this phase of flight is limited, and missile defense systems must act quickly. If a large number of nuclear warheads are directed at a target, there may not be enough missiles deployed nearby to intercept it. Currently, only 3 countries are actively engaged in the development of strategic missile defense systems: China, Russia, and the United States. In addition to developing strong defense systems against nuclear threats, governments also carefully develop procedures for the command and control of nuclear weapons. The effectiveness of nuclear deterrence depends on the readiness to make quick and safe decisions that can have global consequences. The American president has the authority to order the launch of nuclear weapons, and he can choose to use just one intercontinental ballistic missile or to launch all available missiles simultaneously. The U.S. President's nuclear briefcase contains key documents, an activation code, and a means of communication with the high command of the nation's armed forces. To ensure smooth communication and the ability to make decisions, there are 3 such briefcases: one for the president, one for the vice president, and one kept in the White House. The first devices resembling a nuclear briefcase were created during the presidency of Dwight Eisenhower. However, the standard form we are familiar with today was approved during the presidency of John F. Kennedy, especially at the peak of the Caribbean crisis. Kennedy was concerned that in the event of an emergency, someone might give orders without him being involved, and that he might not be able to take control of everything in the event of a threat if he was away from the command post. It is worth noting that the contents and working principle of the nuclear briefcase are a national secret. All information about it remains just rumors, and it is impossible to tell exactly how it is designed. Russia has 3 briefcases plus one spare briefcase. The president has one of them. The Minister of Defense and the Chief of General Staff also have their own devices. These briefcases are portable terminals integrated with the Kazbek Nuclear Command and Control System, implemented in 1983. Russia's nuclear briefcase is designed to be used in the event of a retaliatory strike. The order to launch nuclear weapons can only be given in the event of an automatic detection of a threat of attack against Russia. This means that Russia can only launch nuclear warheads in response to an attack. In this case, the system will suggest optimal scenarios for a retaliatory strike. Unlike in the United States, where the president has the authority to decide on his own to launch nuclear weapons, in Russia, it requires confirmation from 2 of the 3 participants in the process. In addition, Russia has an autonomous launch system that, in the event of a nuclear strike and loss of communication with command, is capable of launching nuclear weapons on its own. This system, known as perimeter or dead arm, was developed in the USSR at the height of the Cold War, and today Russia continues to use it. The technology remains classified, but basically, the system first analyzes background radiation levels at critical facilities. If the radiation level exceeds the normal level, the system determines that Russia has been hit with a nuclear strike. After that, The actions will unfold according to the following scenario. Initially, the test signal is received by the duty officer and Assistant Chief of General Staff. It is critical for them to respond. If they do, they take over control of the situation. If there is no response, the next phase of the test begins, a call to the President's nuclear briefcase. If the President, the Minister of Defense, or the Chief of General Staff do not respond, the system will draw its own conclusions and the countdown will begin. There is no official information about the speed of operation of the system. However, experts note that it takes 15 to 20 minutes to destroy a potential enemy with a retaliatory nuclear strike, depending on which launch platforms survive the first strike. There is not much information about the decision-making mechanism for the use of nuclear weapons in China. Open sources suggest that the Central Military Committee, which includes 11 senior officials and party leaders led by the chairman, handles this matter. Controversial questions surrounding nuclear weapons include theories on how they could affect the Earth's climate and ecosystem. One such theory is the concept of nuclear winter. According to this theory, if several hundred nuclear warheads were to explode, huge amounts of smoke and soot would be released into the stratosphere caused by large-scale fires. This could lead to a significant drop in the temperature on the planet by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, and it could last for decades. There is also a milder version of this theory called a nuclear fall. In this case, if the total power of the explosions is insufficient, the temperature on Earth would drop by only 2.4 degrees Celsius. However, the exact explosive power required for such an effect and the exact temperature drop remain controversial and difficult to calculate. The problem is that, given the many variables involved, it is impossible to accurately estimate the consequences of nuclear war and its impact on climate. One of the common arguments of opponents of the nuclear winter theory is that between 1945 and 1998, there were about 2,000 nuclear explosions with different yields, both in the atmosphere and underground. According to critics, together these tests can be equated to the effect of a large-scale nuclear conflict. However, the tests did not result in massive fires or firestorms, and the explosions were spread out over time. Besides, in the context of globalization, where economics and international relations play a key role, it is clear to many states that large-scale wars are becoming extremely unprofitable. It also means that for many countries, the use of nuclear weapons, including even the detonation of a single warhead on their own territory, has become completely unacceptable. Another factor that raises doubts about the effectiveness of nuclear weapons in the event of conflict is the fact that neither the United States, Russia, nor China has conducted range tests since the 1990s, limiting themselves exclusively to computer modeling. What do you think about this? What do you think would happen if about 2,000 nuclear missiles exploded simultaneously in the world? Please share your opinion in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss new episodes.